Hello, I'm Christian Brassington, and this is a reading from Book 7, A Gander at the Blue Carbuncle.
Moving slowly, Doctor,
said she, whilst walking cat-footed toward our white feathered friend, the rolled-up newspaper now presented as an improvised shepherd's crook.
And show it the sword. Show it. You mean business.
And sure enough, the goose took notice. This bird was no dimwit. As soon as he caught sight of us from the corner of his eye, he released Peterson's gluteus horribilis and squared up to his new foes. It soon became obvious he was confused as to who he should defend himself from first, as his eyes flicked from me to Mrs. Hudson and back.
I say, Watson, what we have here is a remarkably intelligent animal,
said Holmes, pacing up and down in front of him at a respectable distance, making a detailed study.
A gander of the highest quality and an unusual specimen. Note the barbed tail, a marking only found occasionally in this species. Move to one side, please, Mr. Holmes, said Mrs. Hudson, whilst I distract the beast. Otherwise, Dr. Watson will not have an open view of its neck to lop his head off.
I beg your pardon, Mrs. Hudson, protested I. Lop his head off? You want me to execute this bird? The gander heard me. I told you, he was bright, and he swivelled round on his feet to square up to me. He stuck his neck out, lowered his head, and hissed.
Yes, I do, John,
she whispered.
Are you ready? No, Mrs. Hudson, I simply must protest, cried Holmes. Decapitating such a large bird would spurt blood all over my Azerbaijani prayer mat.
Yes, that would be sacrilege, Holmes. That carpet has only ever had human decapitations on it.
Oh, for pity's sake, she despaired. I'm in league with a pair of Boy Scouts. She dashed forward, raising her arm to smite the gander unconscious with the sporting life. But before she could reach the beast, he went into a terrible flapping frenzy and honked repeatedly, more in distress than anger. She stopped in her tracks and stared at it, as did we all. Then, all of a sudden, the gander arched his back rigid, sending his head bolt upright, extending his neck full length before leaning violently to one side, going into a spasm and climaxing before falling onto the Azerbaijani. Well, the gander was dead. I was sure of it. Holmes was aghast, his jaw dropping at the puddle of saliva that was now forming on his mat.
Oh well, Holmes, said I. At least he didn't bleed all over it. But Holmes said nothing. His gaze fixed upon the convulsing bird. He moved to one side and grasped Mrs. Hudson's arm. She, too, was hypnotised by the gander. I looked down. I saw the reason why. His yellow beak had opened wide, and with a wheezing cough, he expurgated a shiny, azure blue egg onto the floor, which rolled off the Azerbaijani and stopped by Mrs. Hudson's boot. We simply gawped in bewilderment. We did not know what to make of this extraordinary development. It was Peterson, the commissionaire, who moved first, picking up the egg in his pudgy hand, studying it, and then getting terribly excited.
See? See this, Mr. Holmes? This is no egg. This is a stone, he cried, holding it up triumphantly.